The scene shifts to Cyan, who stands among the bodies of undead creatures, recognizing them as marionettes and mandrakes. Picking up a mask, he muses, so Boris has already started helping Askell. Interesting. This must be when Boris becomes Askell's subordinate. Suddenly, Kiram appears and asks, "Is this necromancy? A human using ancient dark magic. How is that possible?" Cyan responds, "Boris has a way. He often uses dazed stones to accelerate monster strengthening, which attract monsters with their mana." Kiram then says, "I can sense the mana from those dazed stones coming from that direction." Cyan nods. "It looks like the entire palace is turning into a bloodbath. We should move before things get worse." Suddenly, he pauses and adds, "Wait, I need to change so no one recognizes me." He quickly changes clothes and puts on a mask to cover his mouth. The scene shifts to Alice, who summons the spirit Marion using her magic. Lunav notices and says to Aaron, "Did she use light-type mana to summon Marion temporarily to kill all the masked men? But mixing mana like that is dangerous. She won't be able to hold out long in such an unstable state." Worried, Lunav continues, "We need to stop her quickly, or her body will break down, and the spirit will consume her." The spirit then places her hands on Alice's head and says, "Child, why are you sacrificing yourself?" Alice replies, "I couldn't think of any other way to defeat these monsters." The spirit sighs, "What a cruel fate for a child blessed by Frunia." Just then, the masked men attack Alice, but the spirit intervenes, telling the monsters to stay away from Alice. She raises her hands and uses magic, sending the monsters flying backward. Lunav and Aaron, watching in shock, are stunned by the power. Aaron says, "Just a swing of her hand has that much force? How is this possible?" Lunav interrupts, "But it's not enough. The monsters are getting back up." Aaron, worried about Alice, pleaded, "That's enough. You need to stop. You'll die if you push any further." But Alice thought to herself, "If I stop now, the situation will get worse. I need to end this so everyone can be saved." Just as the Spirit Marion was about to use her powerful ability, Spirit King's Authority, Rongomient, Cyan suddenly appeared and grabbed Alice's arm. This action left the spirit confused and Alice shocked. Even Lunav and Aaron were stunned, wondering who this masked man was. Alice initially thought he might be another marionette, but she quickly sensed something different about him. His aura is completely different from the masked men, she thought, noticing the strange black fog surrounding him. Cyan transferred some of his mana into Alice's arm, making her unable to move. Panicked, Alice cried out, "No, I'm going to be consumed by the fog." The Spirit Marion then said to Alice, "Goodbye, Alice." Alice, sweating and confused, couldn't understand what was happening. Marion continued, "I think this is the end of your journey here. Goodbyes can be sad, but they can also be joyous." Cyan released Alice's arm, causing her to collapse to the ground, her stamina completely drained. "Is it because of that fog? I don't have any strength left to stand," she thought. Before disappearing, Marion told Alice, "Remember, Frunia will always welcome you with open arms, so never lose hope." Then the spirit vanished, leaving Alice in disbelief. Aaron and Lunav, still confused by what they witnessed, stood by. Aaron asked, "What's going on?" Lunav responded, "That man blocked the mana, nullifying the spirit's manifestation. I don't even know if he's human." Kneeling and exhausted, Alice watched as the scene unfolded, despairing, "It's over for us now. They're coming again." The undead began to attack Cyan, but he quickly moved back, placing his dagger on his shoulder. In the blink of an eye, Cyan launched a rapid attack, so fast that the undead couldn't even tell where they were hit. Alice, shocked, realized, "Is he on our side?" Cyan continued his strikes, then took a step back, thinking, "I knew it. If I even take a small step back, they'll all be drawn to the princess's group. It's like they're strongly attracted to something." Cyan then asked Kiram, "Can you sense any special mana in the princess's group?" Kiram replied, "Other than Lunav?" "No, just tell me if there's anything else," Cyan urged. Kiram quickly recognized that the mana from the monsters and the princess's necklace were the same. She informed Cyan, I can feel a similar mana coming from the princess's necklace. Cyan responded, got it. I'll close the distance between us in one go. Help me out quickly. Kiram, a bit annoyed, said, you only need me in situations like these. Cyan then placed his hand on the ground and used the ability Creation Space, covering the area around him with a black-red fog. He followed it with another ability, Fog Domain, which spread the fog quickly around everyone. One of the royal guards warned, be careful, we don't know what might be inside this fog, while another knight noted, it feels like we're in a different place. The black-red fog began consuming the masked men, starting from their feet and slowly engulfing their entire bodies. The marionettes were shocked, as was Alice, who observed, that black fog is absorbing all the undead. Right before her eyes, all the marionettes were consumed by Cyan's fog. The area fell silent, as if nothing had happened. Still confused, Aaron asked, he killed all those marionettes? Just who is that masked person? Suddenly, Lunav collapsed to the ground, and Aaron, shocked, called out, Lunav, get it together. But Lunav couldn't even move. Cyan quickly approached Aaron, placing his right hand on her shoulder, causing her and the guards to react with alarm. The guard shouted, what the hell are you doing? As Cyan used his right hand to grip Aaron's neck while holding his dagger near it. A guard demanded, let her go immediately. Aaron, feeling a strange familiarity, wondered, who is this guy? Cyan then used his dagger to destroy the dazed stone in Aaron's necklace. The guards were stunned, and one asked Aaron, are you okay, Your Highness? Another guard angrily told Cyan, you bastard. What do you think you're doing? Alice, also shocked, called out, Aaron. The royal guards prepared to attack Cyan, but the black-red fog reappeared, stopping them. Cyan then moved to Lunav. Aaron, fearing for Lunav's safety, shouted, get away from her. But Cyan didn't move. Instead, he used his mana to transfer energy into Lunav's body. Aaron tried to use her ability, God's Stinger, to attack Cyan, but he dodged swiftly and turned into fog. Cyan reassured Aaron, don't worry. I'm not trying to harm you. I destroyed the jewel so the monsters shouldn't be attracted to you anymore. Aaron, touching her necklace, asked, are you saying this necklace, given to me by my brother, was attracting the monsters? Cyan urged her, it's not the time for explanations. You need to get out of the palace through the front gates quickly. I've cleared the path for you, so be careful. As the black-red fog began to disappear, Aaron thought, the place is returning to normal. A guard asked, are you hurt anywhere, Your Highness? Aaron, still wondering about the mysterious man, replied, I'm fine. What about Alice and Lunav? Alice reassured her, we're both okay. Aaron was relieved and said, let's recover and head out through the front gates as that man advised. She thought, getting these kids to safety is my priority right now. I'll think about that man later. Lunav, with her eyes turning purple, suddenly recognized something and thought, was that Cyan? The scene shifts to Brian, Emily, and Nana, who are dealing with the monster attack. The monster was still alive and roaring, but Nana quickly used her powers to kill it. Emily asked Brian, what is that kid? Are you sure she's just a maid? Brian, still confused, replied, I'm not sure. I've never seen her like this before. Nana, still in dragon form and surrounded by purple evil mana, was consuming the monster. The scene shifts to Cyan, who is having a serious conversation with Kiram. Cyan was recounting events from his past life, explaining the rumors about a bloodbath that resulted in the deaths of many people. According to Cyan, all the blame was placed on the fifth princess of the empire, Aaron Severus. People said that blinded by her greed for power, Aaron had attempted to kill everyone to seize control. However, Cyan believed it was all because of the dazed stones in her necklace. Even back then, he suspected that the necklace had been given to Aaron by Askell or her brother, Luenel. After that bloodbath, Cyan continued, both Askell and Luenel were praised as heroes of the empire. And it was those two who benefited the most from that incident. Kiram's eyes widened with shock and disgust. Are you saying those two orchestrated the whole incident for their own benefit, sacrificing their own kind for power? She shook her head in disbelief. Sometimes I think humans are worse than demons. Cyan nodded gravely. This is nothing compared to what they will do in the near future, he said ominously. In his mind, he added a thought he didn't dare voice. Yeah, I've helped with worse massacres than this in my past life. Maybe I'm even worse than them. Suddenly, Cyan stood up, ready to leave. Kiram looked up at him, puzzled. Where are you going? I'm sure Nana is waiting for me in the room, Cyan replied. The palace knights will handle the rest. Kiram hesitated for a moment, then spoke up. Cyan, there's something that's been bothering me about the princess's necklace. Cyan turned to her, his expression one of confusion. What do you mean? Kiram bit her lip, then said, I think her name was Emily? Your maid. I noticed she smelled like Daystone too. Cyan's eyes widened in shock. What? The scene shifts back to Nana, who had just finished eating a monster. Blood dripped from her mouth as she stood there, catching a strange scent. Her gaze turned to Emily, Cyan's maid. Emily, Nana said slowly, her voice dripping with hunger. You smell very delicious. Unbeknownst to them, Emily had a Thai bow given to her by Askell, and it contained a day's stone. Nana was instinctively attracted to it, drawn by the stone's mysterious power. Suddenly, Brian noticed Nana's strange behavior. He quickly stepped between her and Emily, trying to calm Nana down. Please, Nana, calm yourself, he urged. Emily, pale with fear, stammered. No, I don't taste good at all. Please stay away from me. Brian's mind raced. What is going on? Why is Nana acting like a crazed monster? He could feel the evil aura emanating from her as she took a step toward Emily. For some reason, she's targeting Miss Emily. I have to stop her somehow, he thought desperately. Nana's eyes were locked on Emily, her gaze hungry and intense, as if the girl were prey. Brian knew they were running out of time. He had to do something before Nana lost control completely. As Nana lunged toward Emily, a past memory flashed through Brian's mind. He saw a vision of Nana as a baby, cradled in his arms, her innocent eyes looking up at him. How could I attack her? He thought desperately. There's no way I can hurt her. Nana's crazed hunger overtook her, and she ran toward Emily with frightening speed, shouting, I can't wait anymore. Emily trembled, fear evident in her eyes, sweat forming on her brow. Brian, torn between his duty and his love for Nana, was paralyzed by the conflicting emotions. Just as Nana was about to strike, Cyan leaped in front of her, shielding Emily with his body. Nana's claws slashed across Cyan's back, and he cried out in pain. Brian and Emily stood frozen, shock written on their faces. Young Master Cyan, Emily screamed, her voice breaking. You got attacked by Nana? Cyan gritted his teeth, fighting through the pain. Kiram, hurry up, he shouted. Kiram, who had been watching from the shadows, moved quickly. She pulled the Thai bow from Emily's pocket. I've got it, she called to Cyan. Emily's eyes widened as she clung to Brian's arm. Oh my goodness. Who are you? She asked, bewildered and terrified by Kiram's sudden appearance. Kiram didn't respond. She dropped the Thai bow on the ground and stomped on it, shattering the day's stone embedded within. Emily gasped, her shock evident. That's the necktie young Master Askell gave me. It was meant for young Master Cyan. Why are you destroying it? Kiram shot her a fierce look. You have no idea what you're carrying around, do you? She turned her attention back to Nana. Hey kid, get it together already. Your beloved Papa is here. The sound of Kiram's voice seemed to reach Nana, cutting through the haze of madness. Her wild eyes focused, and she whispered, Papa. Recognition flooded her face. She blinked a few times, and the dark aura around her dissipated. Papa, what happened? Seeing Cyan's injury, Nana's eyes filled with tears. Did Nana do that to Papa? She asked, horrified. Cyan knelt beside her, wincing in pain, but trying to keep his voice soothing. It's okay, Nana, he said gently. It doesn't hurt at all, and I know you didn't mean to hurt me. You didn't do anything wrong. Nana's legs gave out, and she sank to her knees, her small frame trembling with sorrow, her voice breaking with sadness. I'm so sorry. Brian stepped forward, concern in his voice. Young Master, are you all right? Cyan waved him off, still focused on Nana. I'll be fine. We need to leave this place. It's a mess, he said, looking around at the remnants of the chaos. The scene shifts to Luenel, who stands in an eerily quiet hallway. His eyes scan the empty space, his brow furrowed in confusion. What is going on? He thinks. This place should be teeming with monsters. Yet, the silence is so profound that it seems as if no one is here at all. Luenel, the king's voice breaks the silence. I don't see any monsters around. Luenel quickly composes himself and replies, Yes, your majesty. It's a relief. It seems like the situation has already been taken care of. Askel, standing nearby, shares the confusion evident on Luenel's face, but remains silent. His eyes dart around the hallway, as if searching for something amiss. Suddenly, a familiar voice cuts through the silence. Father! Erin cries out, running toward the king with a worried expression. Her eyes are wide, and her breath is heavy from running. The king's stern expression softens when he sees his daughter. A smile tugs at his lips. Erin, are you all right? He asks gently. Erin throws her arms around him, hugging him tightly. I'm so glad you're all right, father, she says, her voice choked with relief. She pulls back slightly, looking him over. Are you hurt anywhere, father? The king chuckles, shaking his head. I'm fine, Erin. I was able to get here safely thanks to Askel and Luenel. He gestures toward the two men, acknowledging their presence. Erin's gaze shifts to Luenel, and her expression hardens. A cold, unreadable look settles in her eyes as she regards her brother. Sensing her stare, Luenel meets her gaze with one of his own, his expression equally icy. I'm glad you're not dead, Erin, he says with a hint of sarcasm. Despite the tension, I'm glad you're all right too, Luenel, she replies. Inwardly, her mind races. I have so many questions to ask you, but first, I need to take care of the others. At that moment, Alice and a royal knight kneel before the king, their heads bowed in respect. Your Majesty, Alice says, her voice steady. I'm glad to see you safe. The king nods at her, a grateful smile on his face. Thank you for protecting my younger daughter, Alice. I will reward you handsomely for your loyalty and bravery. As Erin listens to the exchange, she notices Askel leaning closer to Luenel, whispering something in his ear. Her eyes narrow in suspicion. What is he saying to him? She wonders, trying to catch the murmur of Askel's words. Whatever Askel says to Luenel, it has an immediate effect. Luenel's face lights up with a wicked smile. He suddenly turns his sword, pointing it at Lunev, who has been standing quietly at the side, watching the scene unfold. I think I know who's behind this incident, Luenel announces loudly, drawing everyone's attention. He levels a finger at Lunev, his voice filled with accusation. The granddaughter of the Garum Mage Association president is behind this. Lunev Rainreaver, you are under arrest. Alice watched the scene unfold with a growing sense of confusion. Arrest? What is he trying to do? She thought. Her eyes darted between Luenel and Lunev, who stood at the center of the hallway, tension hanging thick in the air. The king's face darkened with anger as he addressed Luenel. You're crossing the line here, Luenel, he said, his voice sharp. Lower your sword immediately. Erin stepped forward, her expression furious. Luenel, she saved many people alongside me, she snapped, glaring at her brother. How can you accuse her like this? But Luenel remained unfazed, his gaze locked on Lunev. It was all a trick, he insisted. She wanted to gain our trust, so she could escape. The Garum Kingdom has always been waiting for a chance to strike at the Ushif Empire. Lunev's eyes narrowed, suspicion glinting in them. So their goal was assassination, aiming to create chaos within the Empire, she thought. She spoke up, her voice calm despite the accusation. You speak as if you have proof of this, Luenel. A guard stepped forward. Last night, a suspicious aura of mana was detected at the place where she was staying, the guard reported. The king's eyes turned back to Luenel, narrowing slightly. Is that true, he asked. His voice was stern. You'd better be smart with your words, Luenel. Erin gasped. Luenel seized the moment. I invited the Garum representatives to try and convey our desire for peace, he said smoothly. But I also kept an eye on them as a precaution. Give me some time, and I will find the evidence to prove this plot. The king, after a moment's hesitation, nodded. All right, he said. Find the evidence and present it quickly. Luenel's face lit up with a satisfied smile. Leave it to me, father. I will find it, definitely, he promised. Lunev stood silently, her expression unreadable. Is this a trap? Or is this something grandfather intended to happen? She wondered. Despite her doubts, she kept her composure. Shortly after, Lunev and her group from the Garum Mage Association were imprisoned for investigation. The once bustling halls of the palace grew quiet as the news of their arrest spread. Leximus, who had been apart from Aaron during the chaos, returned with the other guard knights. Spotting Aaron, he rushed over and enveloped her in a tight hug. I'm never going to let you out of my sight again. Meanwhile, Cyan stood by, his thoughts heavy. The funerals of Marquis Drenian, the Empress's younger brother, as well as countless others, were held in the streets, he said quietly. But at least I was able to prevent more deaths than in my past life. He sighed, knowing that despite his efforts, the banquet would forever be known as the Banquet of Blood. As Alice carefully dressed Cyan's wounds, her hands were gentle but firm. These wounds could have been much worse, she said, concern evident in her voice. Cyan remained calm, his eyes steady. You didn't need to do this, Alice, he said. She shot him a stern look. You need to stay still, she replied, a hint of authority in her voice. I'm your sister, and you need to listen to me. It could have been really dangerous for you. It's a good thing you ran away when you did. Cyan chuckled at Alice's comment, but there was a hint of nervousness in his laugh. Yes, I was good at running, he agreed. Alice's expression softened, and she continued, You know, that masked man who saved me. If it weren't for him, I might have died that day. She paused, looking thoughtful. Just who was that person? She glanced at Cyan, studying him closely. Actually, she said slowly, now that I think about it, that masked guy was about your height. And you've gotten a lot fitter lately. Cyan's eyes widened slightly, a faint blush creeping up his cheeks. He shifted uncomfortably, unsure of how to respond. Alice noticed his reaction and grinned. You're embarrassed, aren't you? She teased. Come on, can I touch your muscles? Cyan's blush deepened, and he groaned. Stop making fun of me, please, he muttered, turning his gaze away. At that moment, Askell entered the room. His eyes flicked to Cyan, and he smiled. You've recovered quickly, he noted, his voice smooth. He glanced between Cyan and Alice, a faint smirk playing on his lips. You two are still as close as ever, I see. I'm almost jealous. Askell's presence seemed to drain the room of its warmth. Cyan turned to face him, his expression cold. Yes, thanks to you, Cyan replied tersely. Alice noticed the tension in Cyan's response, and she thought to herself, he seems wary of Askell. Could it be that Cyan knows about Askell's cruel side too? Trying to shift the conversation, Cyan asked, How is the investigation going? Alice kept her eyes on Cyan, her mind racing. Does Cyan also know that Askell has a vile, cruel side to him? Askell's demeanor grew serious as he reached into his pocket, pulling out a bracelet with an embedded day's stone. I actually came here because of that, he said, holding the bracelet up for Cyan to see. This was found in Lunev Rainreaver's room. Askell's voice was calm, but there was a sharpness to his gaze. Lunev claims that it was gifted to her, Askell continued. Cyan's eyes narrowed as he examined the bracelet. Then the person who gave her that bracelet should be on the list of suspects, he said thoughtfully. Askell nodded approvingly. You're very clever, Cyan, he said. Do you remember receiving anything from anyone during the banquet? Cyan shrugged nonchalantly. I don't know, he replied, his tone evasive. Do you know who gave that bracelet to Lunev? Askell's eyes glittered as he answered. I heard there was a merchant in the palace, but he was found dead today, he said. I'm looking for more clues. Askell leaned closer, his voice dropping to a low, serious tone. Are you sure you didn't receive anything during the banquet, Cyan? Cyan's thoughts raced. This isn't an investigation, he realized. He's trying to find a scapegoat. The scene shifts to Emily, who was sitting on a bench outside, softly singing a tune to herself. Suddenly, she felt a presence behind her, and her song faltered. Turning slowly, her eyes widened in fear as she saw a shadowy figure standing there. Thank you all for watching our video today. If you enjoyed it, please consider subscribing to our channel and turning on notifications so you won't miss any future uploads.